Ta is 126 in the world using this Splashyard deck. Today we're gonna push the top 100 in Clash Royale live, and also learn how to play this deck like a pro. Into the first game of this video, and this video is gonna be a little different because welcome to the channel, Ta. He's not on voice. Yes, we have a pro player on the channel right now, but he is from Japan and he doesn't really speak the best English, so we're gonna give this a try, because if it works, then we can open up the world of many different pro players from all over the world, because there's a lot of really good pro players in the world, and Ta is a pro player that has been really intriguing to me this year, and someone that I want to get on the channel ever since he dominated and won one of the monthly qualifiers in CRL this season. And it was cool to see, because he was the first player that really highlighted the ability that anybody could be a pro player in Clash Royale this season, because there's no teams, and pretty much the way to compete in CRL for potentially millions of dollars is through ladder. And yeah, he was able to not only qualify, battle through the round robin, I don't know if that's the technical term, and then end up winning the monthly qualifiers, and he will be playing in the world finals coming up soon. And so I reached out to him for his friend link, I was talking to him, and he said that he has a new TikTok account he wants to start promoting, and I thought, two birds, one stone, why not come on the YouTube channel and we could watch some of his top ladder gameplay. Right now he's number, I think, 100 and something in the world. Yesterday he was a little higher, so maybe we can get back into the top 100 with Ta here. And going into the first game, it looks like it's Royal Giant from the top, and it is Graveyard at the bottom. And this is really important, because the reason Graveyard was probably the strongest archetype for, I would say, probably a good year and a half, maybe 2 years arguably, until one thing happened that changed everything in Clash Royale, and that thing is the Mother Witch. The Mother Witch being able to turn all the skeletons into piggies is very, very hard. And this is weird, because he told me that he waits till triple elixir against Mother Witches. So let's see what happens here. Maybe it's because the baby dragon's alive, so the poison takes out the Mother Witch, and it looks like the baby dragon being there was enough. So yes, even though a lot of the skeletons turned into piggies, he got a little bit of damage and had a sufficient amount of defense to deal with all the piggies that spawned and everything coming over the bridge. So far, it looks like maybe Ta's being a little bit more aggressive because he's behind. And if you look at the Graveyard, that's the placement right there. Take a little picture. If you go up against Mother Witch, that's the placement for Graveyard. That's what he said to play your Graveyard. And I think the reason why is because most people like to play their Mother Witch really far in the back, and then if you play your Graveyard forward, it'll be less likely to turn all the skeletons into piggies, and maybe the poison can take it out quicker. I think that's the reason why. It's hard that there's a little bit of a what's the word I'm looking for? There's a little bit of a language barrier when I talk with Ta. It was funny, I asked him what the hardest matchup with this deck was, and he sent me a picture of the Lava Miner deck. And he said that specifically the vertical warriors. The vertical warriors are really strong. I didn't know what the vertical warriors. Can anybody guess what the vertical warriors were? Well, he was referring to the guards, and the guards against Graveyard actually are surprisingly really good. They're able to survive 4 ticks in the poison, and they can deal with the poison really, really well. And right now, speaking of dealing with it well, a little less clean of a defense. It looks like a little bit of damage are coming on the pigs, and this looks like it's going to be GG's well played. This is the probably hardest matchup with this deck, and it looks like he will be able to, with a tornado, probably mitigate at least most of the damage. Maybe the Royal Giant gets one shot, and with 47 seconds left, Graveyard's good, but the Mother Witch does Mother Witch things, and in this situation, I don't know if there's anything Ta can do. Fisherman gets a ton of value being able to pull that Ice Wizard, trying to defend with the Goblin Cage and the Baby Dragon. Mega Minion gets on the Baby Dragon. Baby Dragon goes down to the Mega Minion. It looks like the Royal Giant will not get a shot, but with 27 seconds left, this is pretty much GG's in the chat. Being able to get the sufficient amount of damage with this Mother Witch, because all the piggies, yes, they turn into skeletons, or all the skeletons turn into piggies. I think I said that reverse. It's kind of early for me here at time zones and everything. The piggies that spawn from the skeletons almost become a wall, an additional barrier around the tower. And it's hard to not only get those lucky skeletons to get on your opponent's tower and deal damage, because a lot of the times they focus on the piggies first. It's a really, really hard matchup, but I think there was still enough in that matchup to maybe be able to figure out tricks and tips to how to win it yourself. It's possible. That's what I'm pretty sure it's possible. Into game number 2. In game number 2, it looks like Electro Spirit. So let me use my big brain right now. What decks are using Electro Spirit right now? Going to go for, it could be, I guess it could be Expo. A lot of Expo decks. It's got to be a cycle deck. Expo, I'm going with Expo, I'm going with Expo, and this is a weird matchup because those archers are really good against the graveyard. I wonder if this is a good matchup or a bad matchup for Ta. Let's see how, I really want to focus on the defense here. So he goes the poison on top of the Expo, getting a little bit of damage on the archer, getting damage on the tower as well, using the knight, and it looks like the ice wizard should be enough. Has to use the tornado to deal a little bit of additional damage to the Expo, and overall, for the first Expo, maybe he didn't have the best cycle. Not having the bar barrel in hand definitely made that defense a little bit harder, but now Ta should know what deck he's going up against. And technically, you know what, Expo, I've been really making fun of Expo a lot just because Expo poo poo pee pee, but Expo technically was the #1 deck last season. So Expo is still viable, but also maybe really good still, just because the construction of the deck, similar to a lot of the top decks in Clash Royale, the priority is defense. Defense, 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 and hopefully you get one Expo lock and you win the game. And if I'm Ta, I'm assuming, going off the tips that he provided me here, he said don't use Graveyard until you get to twice the time. So I'm assuming double elixir. And it's usually a very safe bet to wait till double elixir, just because the longer the game goes on, the better Graveyard is. I know a lot of pro players that even wait till triple elixir. So really, if you play Graveyard yourself, really be patient. I'm not the most patient guy myself, so this isn't really the best deck for me, because I want to win, and I want to win now. I want to just take royal hogs, infinite hogs, baby. All the hogs in the world, and I want to win games. And this, as you can see, very, very... Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why is there a rocket? Usually this deck has a fireball. So going with the rocket, does that change anything? I think it does, because the fireball now takes out the ice wizard ever since it got changed. And I wonder if that rocket is going to get maybe a little less value than the fireball would have, being able to take off the ice wizard and maybe dealing a little bit of damage to tower if the ice wizard's close to your opponent's tower. Using the fireball could be very impactful, but here, Graveyard comes down, log on defense. Looks like a couple of skeletons get on tower, but skeletons at the back, Knight is going to come out to help. And you know what? The last couple of skeletons dealt, what, 150, 200 damage? That's not bad. That's not bad, and that's what you're pretty much going to have to do every single time. A lot of people would look at that graveyard and say, wow, that was a bad graveyard. No, that's a good graveyard. That's a great graveyard. Yes, just because graveyard can take your opponent's tower like that, in certain matchups, like this matchup, it is going to be a grindy game. And this is another thing that I want to emphasize, and this is, I think, tip number 2. Handle most cards with ranged attacks and tornadoes of Ice Wizard and Baby Dragon. So what he means by there is prioritize on defense using your Ice Wizard, your Baby Dragon, and your Tornado. It's one of the most effective combinations in Clash Royale probably ever. I think it was one of the top 5 combos. We made a YouTube short a while back, and I think that made it. I believe that was number 1, maybe number 2. That was before the Ice Wizard got nerfed. But still, I think it's still a very, very strong combo, and he says to prioritize it with... If you have options on defense, try to prioritize those 3 cards. And a decent amount of poison value, making sure you get off the second Expo just so it doesn't become too much of a problem. And this is what Expo decks do really well, is they just, in triple elixir, they're able to stack Expos, but now it looks like his opponent's going to be able to just cycle rockets too. So now the ability to not only spell cycle, but get additional damage with these rockets every single time when compared to a fireball. This could be hard. I don't know if he's going to be able to pull this out. He needs some really lucky skeletons. And the skeletons don't look like they're going to be getting on tower with the it looks like we got a couple at the back, using the tornado to pull the archers, retargeting, getting the damage, still up, but not by a lot. With 26 seconds left, I wonder if he's going to be able to get to 2 graveyards here. First graveyard comes in, goes with the poison, gets the Tesla, gets the archers, gets the tower, uses the tornado to help deal a little bit of more additional damage, and a little bit of damage to tower. Looks like the baby dragon might get on tower. Knight comes down, perfect timing with 11 seconds left. I think you can get to one more graveyard. Graveyard comes down. We need some very lucky skeletons because we know there's going to be a rocket coming in. Poison comes in. You need the lucky Larrys, and it looks like he's getting them. Did he get enough? He did it. Feel it, Expo? Expo. There's not many things right now. It's pretty early for me. I'm not an early riser. But there is nothing better in the morning than watching an Expo lose. Just magnifique. Okay, he's already into another game. I was a little behind on this one, and it looks like he's going up against Logbait, against Bad Bunny, arguably one of the best Logbait players in the game. And this is a matchup that I have struggled with in the past. It's really annoying. It seems like whatever building your opponent has, most likely Bad Bunny's going to be using the Tesla instead of the Inferno Tower. No Goblin Gang in cycle for Bad Bunny. Using it on the left side, maybe going to be able to get some damage with the graveyard on this right side. And if you notice, one thing I want to emphasize, but that's a lot of damage, and that's just really good recognition. I guess that goes a little bit against what he said about waiting till times 2 elixir, but there are certain situations, especially if you know the deck, great King Tower activation. I didn't know you could activate King Tower in that situation. Princess is going to get a little bit of damage. Ice Wizard is going to log onto the Princess and take it off. Princess gets maybe one more shot, but the lead is for Ta right now, and I think the longer this game goes on, it's going to be a similar matchup to what we saw in the last game, where Bad Bunny's going to be able to defend a lot, and probably a lot of rockets at the end. I would assume so. So having this lead right now early on is really going to be important. So one thing we didn't talk about, and one thing that I thought was the most surprising when talking to Ta about this deck, because I've seen a lot of people play Graveyard, it's been around for so long, and so I thought I knew how the deck worked, and I thought I knew all the optimal placements. And if you guys don't know the optimal placement for Graveyard, I don't think we've seen it happen yet. That's the placement. Hopefully the optimal placement was on screen when I brought it up before. That's the placement that Ta does. That's the placement. And I know what a lot of people are saying, but that's not the placement that I've been told to be using. And the reason why Ta uses that placement is because a lot of the skeletons will be spawning at the back of the tower. It forces your opponent's defensive units to go to the back of the tower, and it gives a better chance for the Knight and the Baby Dragon and the Ice Wizard to get on tower, lock on tower, deal damage to your opponent's tower. And it makes sense. And it makes sense that it almost, if you can switch up the normal placement with using, and there it is, trying to get your opponent, you're trying to be creative with every single card in this deck, especially the Tornado, and not only relying on the graveyard to deal the maximum amount of damage. You can get a Goblin Brawler on tower, you can get a Baby Dragon on tower, you can get a Knight on tower. All of these, there's a lot of tools that you can do with this deck, and a lot of ways you can be very clever, and oh, it is Inferno Tower. Yikes. But still, the damage coming in right now from Ta should be enough. Using the Tornado, getting a little bit of damage, but also pulling the Knight onto his opponent's Princess Tower, getting the splash damage as well. Rocket comes in. It looks like this Princess will not get on tower. Has to play the Ice Wizard as well to deal with this Princess. And, ooh, this is getting annoying. Graveyard on the right side. Naked Graveyard. Goblin Barrel on defense. Poison comes in. Needs to deal with these Princesses. Uses the Tornado to deal with the Princess, pulls it away. The damage is coming in. It's going to be a little short, though. The skeletons, the lucky skeletons were not there. Knight up high. If Bad Bunny gets a little bit more damage, all he needs to do is go Bar Barrel for this. Perfect. All he needs a little bit more damage, and then he can go with a rocket to win this game, but it doesn't look like he's going to be able to get the damage. Poison comes in. Tick, 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 tock. The mouse went up the clock. Ta went up the clock. He went up the ladder boards. GG. Well played. Ta's good. Looks like it's going to be Pompeo's deck, so it's going to be a little bit of Loon Minor Cycle, or Minor Loon Cycle. This should be a relatively good matchup, except for this Inferno Dragon, which is probably one of the most annoying cards to deal with for Graveyard decks, especially this one, Splashyard. The Inferno Dragon's really good against the Baby Dragon, the Ice Wizard, the Knight, the Goblin Brawler that comes from the cage. There's so much. It should be an easy King Tower activation here, except I'm worried about... Okay, Okay, could you have done that differently? Maybe not having enough elixir. I wasn't paying attention. Right now my tablet's covering the elixir, so maybe not having elixir to use the tornado when the balloon got onto the cage and pulling that to activate your king tower. So definitely not the start you would want, but it's not the end of the world. That left side tower is still relatively healthy, and it looks like Ta going very aggressive with Graveyard. So it looks like there are some matchups, or maybe in certain situations where an opponent doesn't have the best cards in their hand, where you can go in and get a decent amount of damage. And it looks like Barbarian gets on tower, gets one shot, gets two shots, and just like that takes the lead. But you know there's going to be a balloon coming down. You know there's probably going to be an ice golem or a miner to support. So balloon comes down, probably a miner going to come in as well. And this is what I want to see how you defend this correctly. So miner comes in, miner gets on tower, Infernal Dragon destroys that cage, Zap comes in, it's going to be able to reset Ice Wizard on that balloon. Doesn't have the tornado though. Is that going to be enough with King Tower activated? It should. And there it is. That just shows how good the defense of the Ice Wizard, Tornado, Baby Dragon, also the Goblin Cage is really underrated on defense. Not underrated, it's just a solid defensive card. That's pretty insane. It kind of showcases the ability of defense with this deck, and that you can maybe go a little bit over aggressive in times, and with that combination still be able to defend, even though it was what, 7 elixir, wait no, yeah, 7 elixir plus the balloon, so that's 12 plus a partridge plus a miner. There was a lot of elixir and he was able to defend it, which is pretty incredible. Speaking of incredible, I don't think I've mentioned all the tips that Todd told me when we were talking. And one of the tips that he told me was one that most people know, but I want to make sure I tell it anyways, is to use your Graveyard on defense in some situations. Balloon, stay away from the tower. Well done. Fireball comes in, and that's an annoying situation. And this is why a lot of people don't use the Ice Wizard anymore, is because the ability on defense really gets... Ooh, Mega Minion doesn't get on tower. Okay, perfect. This is getting close. This game's getting very, very tight, and these Inferno Dragons at the bridge just get so much value. Graveyard coming in. Barbarian is not going to get on tower. A lot of decent skeleton spawns, though. Skeletons are piling up on tower, and that's going to be GG well played. I wasn't even able to tell you about the last tip. Technically, there's 2 last tips. All right, I'm going to ask him. Maybe we can go into one more game. I convinced him. He's going into one more game. You're welcome. And it looks like it's against Wotop. And Wotop usually uses a very similar version of the deck that is my favorite deck. I already made a YouTube video on my favorite deck. It's Royal Hogs, Royal Recruits. But instead of using the Goblin Cage, I use the Piggies. And I think this is an okay matchup for Graveyard. Both these decks like to play relatively slow unless there's a way to win this matchup or get a little bit of advantage in this matchup that I do not know, and Wotop's going to go more aggressive. And it looks like here, having that opportunity, feeling like he has the Goblin Cage breaking under the cage at a really good time on the left side. Using the Tornado on the left side, Goblin Brawler's not going to get on tower. This Flying Machine is looking really annoying though, and Flying Machine's going to get the lock. It's going to get 1 shot, 2 shots, 3 shots, shots. That's a lot of damage. That's a lot of damage. And Wotop getting an early lead with a really, really solid push in that first minute. So I want to, before I forget, the last couple of tips. And one tip is defensive Graveyards. If your opponent has a very high single target unit, for example, a P.E.K.K.A, a Prince, a Sparky, maybe a push with all 3 of those. Defensive Graveyards, very, very helpful against those units. As well as, it's funny, there is a little bit of a language barrier, just because he is from Japan and I'm from Canada, and so I think there was a little bit of loss in translation, but I think I got the gist of it. And the last tip was pray to Graveyard, and just because the Graveyard, there's a little bit of RNG with the reason why the placement, there's an optimal placement, is because it's the placement that has the highest chance of skeletons spawning on top of your opponent's tower. So the skeleton will spawn outside the tower, out of the ground, and right onto your opponent's tower and be able to deal the most damage possible. And wow, this is going to be really annoying. Royal Hogs come in. Is this where you can activate King Tower? I don't know if you use the Tornado on the right side. Tornado is going to come in, going to get 2 piggies on King Tower, and does activate King Tower. And now in double elixir, this is when we should probably start seeing a couple of Graveyards come out from Ton. Maybe already the first one coming on the left side, having the Knight and the Goblin Brawler. Graveyard 4 elixir for Wotop, going to go with Zappies on defense. Poison comes in, should get a lot of value on the Royal Recruits, but also all the Zappies come in as well. Very, very good. So with the Graveyard, we saw it there a little bit, where depending on where the skeletons spawn, depends on how much damage you're going to be able to deal with graveyards. So there is a little bit of RNG, and RNG, I don't know if everybody knows the term, it's random number generator, kind of just refers to randomness in video games. And there is a little bit of randomness where sometimes if you get a lot of lucky skeleton spawns and they spawn on your opponent's tower, you can deal more damage. So that's where the Pray to the Graveyard comes from. But then the second point was, and shave a lot. I don't know what that meant. I don't know if he saw my beautiful facial hair and he's like, you know what, you gotta get rid of it, Cash, man. You gotta shave this facial hair a little bit more, and I don't blame him. Or maybe it's just emphasizing the fact of just getting a little bit of damage here and there, where there was one graveyard earlier on in this video against Expo, I believe, and it dealt 250 damage. And a lot of people would look at that as a negative expo. That's fine. Or a negative graveyard. That's fine. It's fine. It's okay. Even if you deal a little bit of damage here and there and just defend perfectly, you will most likely win the game. And this is why a lot of people really like this deck, is because if you play it perfectly, you can probably win the majority of matchups in Clash Royale. But you have to be patient. You really have to focus on defense as well, and just getting the maximum amount of value out of every single unit you play on defense. And these graveyards, you gotta pray. You gotta pray, and it looks like a decent amount of skeletons load up on that tower, and just like that, with that one graveyard, Ty's in the lead, but Royal Hog split 3 on the right, 1 on the left, Flying Machine coming down the left side as well. Probably gonna focus on defending this right side tower more than the left. Pig does get on the right side tower, takes the lead back for Wotop, and with 55 seconds left, a little bit of a reset from Wotop with Royal Recruits at the back. Going in, this Electro Spirit on defense against these graveyards are so good. Poison comes in, gets a little bit of damage to the tower. He's going to be able to deal with all these recruits as well. But these Flying Machines are so problematic for Todd to deal with. They're really annoying. Doesn't have that Mega Minion, or doesn't have that Fireball. Using the poisons in other situations and using the poison now on defense, it looks like that should be enough. Fireball comes in. I don't think the Zappies are going to get on tower. We know a graveyard's coming in. Maybe a bridge block on the left? No, but Royal Hogs at the perfect time. I think that might be able to get on tower. No, 4 Elixir had enough for the Goblin Cage, and that should be a clean defense, and it looks like the skeletons are piling up. And there it is! Pray to the Graveyard and shave. What was it? Shave a lot. Wait, it didn't win. Yes, he did. He won. Shave, remember, pray to the Graveyard and shave a lot. You will win with Graveyard 9 times. 60% of the time, it works 100% of the time. So, Todd's pretty good at Clash Royale, and if you want to see more Todd, feel free to check out his TikTok, link is in the description below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to check out this video over here. It's my newest video. I'll see you guys in that video. Deuces.